forefront of my mind is that the cycle of women,
Indeed.
you know, and not only just their monthly cycle, but equally also they've got cycles right between the ovary and so when it's time for them to conceive and when they will not conceive,
Absolutely. Menopause.
menopause and the
Mm,
different cycles that goes with that
mm.
also when you look at it, you know. And when I look at this really, I'm more oftentimes that's why we say everything is everything, and we look at the realm of human beings, and by studying these cycle we are able to find ourselves in a situation that we become more aware of the universal laws, because these cycles are part and parcel of something that is governed by the universal laws,
Exactly.
you know. And if we overstand them, really, we'll find ourselves in a situation that we are not out of sync with ourselves and nature, and out of sync with ourselves and the earth, and out of sync with ourselves and the universe, out of sync with the omniscient, the omnipotent, the omnipresent, but we'll be at one with.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like you're saying, the reincarnation subject.
Yes.
I think it's of all the cycles, it's one of the most challenging to overstand and experience even, because who has come back and said, you know what, I am the returnee. um Messiahs have often made those types of you know claims, but I haven't met any typical human being that's said to me at any time in my life that actually I recall being here and I remember you and I remember everything else. You were called this and I was called that. But I know I have met beings on my journey in India of people who have very clear recollection of their past life and lives. And I went on that journey, and I've recalled some of my past. But I want to say this to those who find it fascinating. Recalling the past is not necessarily the key. What the key is to retain the essence of the past, so that you can use that essence in your now and create a better future. But to just revisit the past for just the knowledge of what you were and what was is a little bit of, you know, a, I want to say a luxury, but it's not a luxury. It's a backward way of thinking because, as they say, forward ever,
Backward
backward
never.
never. So if you look at the, circulatory system, we have some valves called bicuspid and tricuspid, and we have all kind of valves in our veins and in our arteries, which make sure that the blood moves forward ever, and backward
Never.
never. So in my opinion, when I look at cycles and things around me in life, they all seem to be going forward. And the only thing that seems to be contradicting that principle of cycles and seem to be going in a degrade, in a
Retrograde.
kind of reverse, is the
Retro.
consciousness of man and how he contradicts nature. This is the only thing that seems to be going in the opposite direction. But nature and everything around us is pointing, it's pointing forward. And that's the idea. We need to get on board with nature and do the right thing. Let's move our consciousness. Positive means forward. To go back into last week, into what happened that made me feel sad, is to bring my sadness forward. No, I want happiness forward. So I leave the sadness behind. Why do I need to recall and remember that? If we remembered our past lives, can you imagine if we remembered our past lives, Herukhuti, and you could remember the man that slept with your ex-wife or slept with your wife that made you break up and have your family dismantled, or the man that murdered you or murdered your child, or the man that did, or the man or the woman or anybody that did something that was so-called unforgivable. Think about it, please. Think about it, listeners. If you could go back and see who you were, but as you are now, you know there's so much dramas in life. Do you think there were no dramas in your past life? You think so?
Well, in truth, listening to you and what you're actually saying, I'm saying to myself, really, the experience and the experience of those past life would be something to I to observe and know, take my strong points and correct my weak points in this life. So therefore, I'm able to utilize it, as a means of moving up the ladder.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Unfortunately, there's a thing called ugra karma because when we pick up different types of habits and behaviors
Yes.
as we move through our journey, we get recompense, good and bad. So when one says karma, most people think of bad and unlucky, but karma is both things. Someone win the lottery, that's karma as well.
Mhm.
You found some money, you inherited something, whatever. It's good karma. It's karma. Karma don't just mean bad. Karma literally in Sanskrit means work. It doesn't mean reaction, actually. It means work, karma. So in India, someone will say, ye karma hai, what is your work? Yeah, ye karma. What type of job do you do? Ye kadesh, what land do you come from? Ye kadam karma, what is your work? So that's when we say things according to your works you shall be known.
Mhm.
You see, then you can see whether the tree, has borne what type of fruit. But as they say, the fruit will represent what the tree was carrying, what nutrients and ingredients and concepts and precepts and your philosophy, everything you actually carry as your belief, your convictions, that makes you act, it makes you do things, and then you get the work reaction, which is good or bad. So you're right. Going back in our past, we should bring forward the essence of the lessons that were learned. We don't need to bring the dregs and bring the, you know, byproducts of our past, because then it will bring the misery that we had back then into our present. I don't want to know who caused me harm in my past. I don't want to know because it will disrupt my present. Because I'm likely, and you're likely, and those of you out there who if we feel malice against people who's done harm, we will be hunting people down right now. We'll be hunting our enemies, and that will become the whole of the world and life will become one big battlefield of people just getting people back for the things they done in the past.
But what if, when you check it really, right? The learning that I speak of is, for instance, in the past, you know, what was it? What I you speak of is the effect. But what of the cause that I contributed to making that effect? And how could I learn by observing that, you know, cause so that really and truly I may recall that cause, that I may never make that cause again, because I don't really want to go through that effect again.
It's wonderful. Wonderful you've raised that point because we have memory and sometimes we overlook what the memory is as a function to us as beings. But think about it. These are really good food for thought. What would you be without your memory? What would you be? Because you wouldn't even be able to tell me because you would have forgotten. What would you be without your memory? You wouldn't be able to give me a statement. And, have you seen that film, Memento? There's a film called Memento.
Memento, no, I
See
haven't.
it. You see some of the problems that one embarks upon when one has to live without a memory. And this man, his memory only lasted for something like 5 minutes. Any experience after 5 minutes is gone, wiped clean. So he lived by, you know, uh, making, statements on his body. He would carve them into his body, like tattoo these statements, like don't trust him, and put the person's name. Don't trust, Timothy. And he have pictures taken of people he thinks that's going to be very dangerous to him. And he will forget that. So he had to. He had relationships. And within 5 minutes, the same woman he was talking to, he'd say, "Hi, how are you? What's your name?" But she told him 5 minutes ago. So, who would you say loved you if you had no memory? Because you'd forget that they told you 100 times that they love you. You'd forget that they shared that love with you. What would you say about your bank account if you're a millionaire and you forgot that you're a millionaire? You know. So that forgetfulness is our biggest problem. And recall and memory is our greatest savior. But you need to remember the good things, remember the vital things. Otherwise it becomes chaotic if you just remember things in any order, anything. So memory is besides, have you thought you would never be able to walk or speak, you know, without your memory? Your muscles have memory. The cells of your body has memory. Water has memory. So it's a really important faculty, the memory. And even if someone says, yeah, but the most important thing in the world is God and love for God. Okay, I agree. But if you forget that, then you're in a problem.
This brings me to a point when you said the most important thing is God and love for God. Um, how would you explain love?
Well, they say that quote, love thy God with all thy might, with all thy heart, with all thy soul.
I have heard it many times.
Absolutely. So, the love of your mother is, in my opinion, the only love that comes under that. It's selfless. She's feeding you, looking after you. There's no guarantee or there is no arrangement that you will pay her back or give her anything for the loving devotional
Okay.
services she's doing for you. And so, love for God is considered the highest ideal that a man can have. It's higher than the love for a woman. But if you have no memory,
Yes, but even so, what I'm questioning, really and truly, you know, are we saying then that there's many different aspects of love? Because the love that you may have for a woman might be different from the love that you have for your mother, or it might be different from the love that you have for the Almighty.
indeed, the love for the Almighty is in a complete different category. Complete different. It's worlds apart. It's chalk and cheese. It's day and night. So they shall never be the same. Lust and love and divine love. So they speak of selflessness. And this brings us to a really, really challenging subject and food for thought. Because when we say we love somebody or they love us, I'm told by one master that it's born upon conditions. He said to me, it was shocking, this experience I had. He said to me, have you ever thought what love really means? The worldly love that we call love. It's a porridge word. He says, porridge, unless you put a bit of nutmeg and some vanilla and some
Spice.
spices in it, it's actually quite bland. So love can be quite blanket like that unless we define what it is that we love about the person. So he said, take my wife, for example. I love the way when she walks into the front room and walks across the room, the way she moves, the way her hips swing as she moves. I love that about her. I love when she serves my food. She makes me feel like a king. She makes the effort to do that. I love that about her. And he started to itemize things, particular things that he loves about her. And that was the sum total, the totality of what shaped the love he had for her. But then he said one thing that was really then dismantling. He said, and as when those things start to decay and diminish, unfortunately, whether we like it or not, the values of that love also start to diminish.
Then is that any difference, really and truly, from, for argument's sake, The man was going down the road and he saw this beautiful woman, beautiful in figure and got some behind gone way back to Africa, some breast gone way back to Jamaica, and her face look, when he looked at her, he said, "Yes, love that," right? And yes, him get to talk to her and get to win her over, but then later on, as age come on board and time, and that behind that once gone all the way back to Africa is now dropped and is no longer there again, and the breast now was gone way back to Jamaica, also dropped now.
Everything's going to Australia.
Everything gone to Australia. You understand what I'm saying to you?
Absolutely.
So, how then do we determine or define this love that we're speaking of? You know, what I mean, that they really and truly, because that is not something that is permanent. Really, that is something that really one could say. Could one say that is lust?
It's
Could
temporal.
could I temporal?
It's temporal because
It's a fancy for the moment, fanciful for that moment,
it
but it's
is.
not an eternal.
It's for the season.
This is,
And it has cycles, and people
mhm.
speak of the 7 year itch and so forth. But I think why they mention things like the 7 year itch is because there's cycles within the human body and mind. And so, after 7 years, we would have gone through a cycle at least. Many cells in your brain would not be there anymore. You would have the reword again. You would have recycled new cells. Regenerated new cells,
Mhm.
and so you've got new organs and new parts of your being. And so, the challenge comes that everybody's changing. Everyone's changing. So after 7 years, your wife that you married 7 years ago is a different person. And if you don't stay in touch with that person as they're going through the changes, then you end up living with a stranger. But the point you made about love diminishing as the person grows old and everything goes to Australia, the breast is
Yes.
pointing down, the buttocks muscles are dropping, everything's drooping down to Australia, then the person's love also starts to droop and diminish. But there is another side to it, you see. It was suggested
Mhm.
in the Bible and other holy books that what we should have is a holy matrimony, so that you make the union something more than just the physical flesh
Ah.
and the lusts. And there we have a dual thing. You're supposed to have an inward growth, an inward union, a spiritual union, a spiritual interaction with your partner, so that as everything starts going to Australia, then the one thing that's still pointing upwards and moving forwards will be that special spiritual bond which you have hopefully picked up on the journey. Even if you started on a physical journey, the idea is that you'll end up in a spiritual, outcome.
Okay, I hear that, right? And yes, I can see that point really. But what if the individual who would say that they actually feel that there is, but there was actually one, for instance, where man and woman was concerned, they were was it androgynous,
Androgynous
right?
means male and female
They were both
in
male and
one.
female.
Yeah.
And when the split came,
Mhm.
right, it was one soul. And that split that soul into two parts, male and female.
Wow, you're going deep now.
Now,
Okay, let's
the
go.
the male, so the male and the female then now is split. So one would say that the love that one yearns for, right, is to realign oneself back with that
Wow.
original part that was split from you.
You're the master, Herukhuti. I don't expect anything less of you. I'm trying to keep this thing, on the ground floor and possibly, the first floor, second floor, but you're going right to the top floor. Well, that's true. What you say is true, is that androgynously we were created as androgynous beings, mean that when the Almighty created us, He created us in His own image, which is free from gender discrimination or gender definition. Both male and female makes the God. He's both male. He's him and her. He's both. It's all. So we were created with that sameness, with all in us. We had male and female in us, all things in us. And that time came where we became, a little bit yearning for satisfaction outside of ourselves. And this is where the illusion is created, because really the word Atmaram means soul satisfaction, means within you have everything. And if you can go there, you don't need nothing that's without. But we were in a garden, a world, we were in what you call we call the matrix, but let's call it the territory, our
Okay.
environment. At that time, we needed to unfold like the seed. You need to plant the seed so that the tree comes out of the seed. So we hadn't come out of ourselves and discover our true potential. We were just inner with everything safely there, but we need to discover that thing. And so it was necessary for many of our components, like our inner female aspect, to come out and play that role in its own individual right as a female being. And then we would have someone to love. The truth, the point you're making is very, very profound. We are indeed finding a way to love ourselves. So the female counterpart, or other way around, excuse me, the male counterpart, when we reunite with the opposite sex, we are reuniting with our very selves. And that's why that holy matrimony brings you back to a oneness with the original thing that the Almighty created. And it's a beautiful thing.
But in truth, thou art right. But what if that togetherness that we're coming back to, really and truly, is not the original source that the two souls that will split the female? So what if that female was of another source for another male, really and truly? So therefore, that holy matrimony that you speak of then, really and truly, is a misfit.
So if you're mentioning, if you're speaking about what they call soul um, partners, they got soul partners, they got solar flames, they have all kind of names they call it.
Yes.
But a fire will rejoin another fire, and we'll have no prejudice that actually your fire comes from Australia and his fire comes from Africa. Fire is of the nature of any fire. It's of the same quality. And so the soulmate thing, I believe, works when the person returns to the order of what was intended. So, for example, if there is day and night and 7 days of the week, and we're only living in 4, and we're only living in day, then there's so much incompleteness. But once a person returns to the complete thing that they truly are, if the person becomes spiritual, if they become self-aware, discover what they call self-discovery, and that the male does that, the female does that, then there's really no difference between those souls. And if they separate, if you in your point, and went to different partners, but those partners also had evolved their soul to that same awakening, then they would reunite, they'd unite, and it'd be a soul partnership as well.
But then we're speaking in relationship to love. And the question was, what is love? And in the sense of the manifestation of I love this woman and I fall in love with her, but yet still later on down the line I fall out of love with her.
Because if you fall in love based on those conditions that we mentioned, and those conditions start to dwindle, then the love will dwindle.
So
But as we
therefore, it
said,
wasn't love in the first place.
it was lust in the first place,
Yes.
or it was so-called love with conditions. And I'm suggesting that people love based on conditions. People don't love for nothing. Otherwise, if you love for no reason, you could love anybody. But you love a person for a particular reason, even if you can't identify what it is. It's for a reason. You like the way they smile. You like the shape of their face. It's something. Chemically, biochemically, aurically, there's things going on, which is invisible communications between these two beings that gel them together, even if they can't see that. But you're right. Those things dwindle. And we're suggesting that people on the journey find a way to, I want to say network, but find a way to integrate with each other in a spiritual, in a way that's deeper than just the physical flesh, the carnal self. And then maybe, that will be the essence that will bring that union, to its destination. Otherwise, unfortunately, on the physical side of things, they run out of fuel because things are temporal in this world and they start to dwindle. And then Australia becomes busy. Everybody starts showing signs of going to Australia.
And you see, this is the funny thing, really. When you look at it, really, the thing that usually I find really is that when people speak of love, they speak of love in a manner and in a way as if it is absolute, you know. And then I say to myself,
Hmm.
um, if love is absolute, is love then God? Because God is, it is said, is absolute, right? And so therefore, it's a relationship then between man that we call love. This is a God and goddess experience that we're going through to come to that overstanding. Or you understand what
I
I'm
do.
saying?
It's a bit misleading when people use love in the way you're saying, and I grew up hearing that literally all my life, and I'm
Yes,
still hearing it, and it's really a cause for concern, and it should be an ongoing analysis on this thing because you know how many people been you can say deceived and they misconceive the idea of love and what they've done on based on that. You know, 2 weeks ago, no, it was last week, the story on the news of a husband and wife that killed their mother and father and
yes,
buried them in the
yes.
garden, and got money from their bonds or something. You know what they use the money for? You know what that was all for? To buy themselves some relics of Elvis Presley and some other one of their fans that they were, fascinated and obsessed with. You kill your mother and your father. So, you see these things happening. You're right. You have to question. A husband killed his wife.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Wife kill husband, to get the estate, and story goes on. Son kills brother, and sisters kills brother, and so forth. In the name, you know. And what's this love? Where is it? What is it? As they said, where is the love? Where is the love in that? Where was the love? Did they ever love their parents? Like you were saying, could you ask the question, did this person ever love this person? Ever? That they could end up doing this? So it's a mystery and it's a journey that it's an experience and an experience that we have to evaluate, and it's painful and sometimes bitter, sometimes sweet. But the synthesis of both these things, the pain, the happiness, and the distress of all the experiences we go through while trying to understand what love is, brings us eventually to an understanding. And I say, when you get there, you'll realize that no matter who you love, how long you've loved them, they will leave you or you will leave them because you'll have to
The
die
time is
or they
12
will have to
o'clock. The
die.
time is 12
So there is a
o'clock. The time
temporal
is
thing
12
about
o'clock.
this
The time
love
is 12
anyway.
o'clock.
But there is a love divine, and it never leaves you, and you're always with it as long as you are reunited and connected with it. It will never disconnect, and it will never mislead you. It will never deceive you. It will never lie to you. And you won't have to ever worry about any of your parts growing so old that they're turning towards down under in Australia. You will still have that divine um, you know, interaction. And so that's my that's my testimony. That's my finding. That when I do meditation, I feel connected with that divine, you know, essence. And I've never felt that from a woman, and I've never felt that secure. I've never felt that type of trust. I've never felt that type of faithfulness. I've never felt that type of selflessness ever in my existence. And so I've placed my eggs in that basket. And so far, up to my time now in life, I've not been disappointed with it. I've had many disappointments in love. And I'm sure I've disappointed many in love. But my relationship with the Almighty seemed to be even sometimes topsy turvy and rickety rackety. The divine essence seemed to be going strong. So I suggest it to everybody. Find your love with God as well.
So would you say that your relationship is God is beyond love?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I'm saying. Everybody will come to that conclusion, even if you have a wonderful relationship with your partner, with no ups and downs as such, smooth runnings, but still the end is a demonstration of the temporal nature of this material world. But
And
your relationship with the Almighty goes on
what,
hereafter.
and what role does respect then play in this thing that we call love?
That's like, for me, that's like saying, how do you separate the wetness from water? You know, love and respect is like husband and wife again. You can't separate the two. At times, someone who loves someone apparently shows them disrespect. These irregularities do happen, but this is when the love is in a state of disorder. As we spoke about cycles, it's out of cycle and out of sync, out of synchrony. This happens. This is meant to happen so that we know when we're out of sync. We're meant to have symptoms
Okay.
so that we know that we're ill.
All right. Then what is it, this terminology that man seems to use that they call blind love?
That most of us do. That a lot of us do because, based on the cycles and karma and the in a bank account, we talk about your bank balance, and your bank balance gives you a status, working class or middle class or upper class. Your bank balance alone can do that, even if you're not trained in any art, in any profession. You're just a landowner. You can't read and write, but you're upper class because your bank balance makes it so. So, you know, I think we also have that. We have a certain amount of shekels in terms of value, you know, um, and we interact with each other based on the values we have. So we find, a woman will search for a partner, and in her past, the experiences that's in her balance, in her bank balance, she goes and she searches out someone that relates to that. She had a father that didn't give her attention, and she had a previous husband that also didn't give her any attention, the love and attention she needed. They're sitting in the sofa, and she wants him to hug her and play with her hair and just coax her on her neck and just make her know that, I'm physically saying I love you, even while we're watching EastEnders. And, he's sitting on the other side of the chair thinking exactly the same thing. And she chose him and he chose her. But the chemistry that's in the background of their karma, they're both people who want to have someone who will hug them. And they chose each other. So we often choose the opposite thing that we actually want. We're choosing someone that feels exactly like us.
But if it's
But the
some,
thing is, we shouldn't be choosing someone that feels exactly like us. Because if I feel a little bit empty and I need you to fill me up, but then I choose someone who's also empty and feel like they need filling up, then we're both sitting there. So
okay,
it's alchemy of union that we get wrong when we meet our so-called, the thing that attracts us to our so-called loved ones is we're choosing the wrong things. We've been grouped up with the wrong people because we're tapping into either the lust or we're tapping into what are the conditions that we listed earlier that the person
mm-hmm.
likes. You choose something that's so vain, so mundane, something that's just external, or something that's based on just fulfilling your own selfish need. But that person you chose is doing the same thing, and so you both end up with
Okay,
selfish needs and nobody fulfilling anybody's needs.
okay. But what then really of the individual that would say, but Mark, is what you're talking about, what you and Erekut is talking about, is that looking at love through the eyes of a US-centric view?
Oh wow. Oh Oh wow.
How does
Okay. Wow.
how
Wow.
does love relate then in terms of say
Elder,
say
you're
say
serious. Okay,
say
I
the
got
man
you.
in the Amazon.
I got you.
You know
That's
what
so
I'm
dangerous. You're
saying?
there. Okay, he's done it again. Okay, so okay, let's clear up a couple of things. One is, when I mentioned that people build up all these kind of different
Yes.
shekels,
Yes.
it means that the people have coins that they can share with other people on a level. So they meet people of the same ilk and they share it. Sometimes they meet other people in a lower ilk and they share that and they have problems.
Yes.
But ideally, we should be lining up with people who have, the glove that fits our right hand. It's not that because it's 5 fingers, it won't
Yes.
fit the left hand if you turn it around. So it's linking our essence with someone with the same essence, similar
Right.
essence. That
Okay.
the word is compatible. Now,
Yes.
you just mentioned the European influence.
Yes.
Very dangerous, sir.
Listen,
Okay,
listen,
here we
listen.
go. When people watch Sex in the City, okay.
One second, listen. The Brother Bongo is here, right? But where we are at the present moment is something we're gonna definitely have to come back to.
Oh, you just really
You know,
you've poured salt, you've poured alcohol, everything in the wound because that European influence has changed diametrically everything that we've just spoken about. I didn't want to
precisely.
depress people on a Friday evening for the
No, no.
weekend, but the ideology of
Yes,
European love,
yes,
I want to leave people with a symbol that they've called the Adams family. Their ideology of love is twisted upside down, from the way they grow their children to the way they treat their loved ones. And so we've somehow, unfortunately, we have absorbed those ideas by watching their movies, their love movies, their films, and all that stuff. And we believe that that is love. And when we
yes.
see our brothers
You
and our
know,
sisters, we say, hold on a minute.
when,
This doesn't look like what I see happen in the
no, when
movies.
Valentine come,
Valentine's is
and
coming. Must be.
and you go you hear the movie, hear how the movie go now. The movie goes that really and truly, when I'm in love with the daughter, I go with a big bunch of flowers and some
I was just gonna
chocolates
say.
and knock the door, right?
Exactly.
But no, our relationship with our women, when we don't go, when they're watching these movies and we go and knock the door and we don't turn up
We
with
get
these big flowers
rejected.
and these boxes of chocolate, something,
Unacceptable.
you know that is not acceptable, don't you?
Not acceptable.
Anyway, listen.
We got to get European on love to
Yes,
be in love.
yes. Listen,
Sorry.
listen. Bongo Tete is on board now, right? This is a very, very, what do you call it?
Yeah, we're gonna stick with love. Let's
Yes,
stick with love.
we're gonna stick with
We're
love,
gonna
and
stick with love.
next week we can go further into it. Bongo, I. Give thanks, Bongo. Give thanks, people. I am Herukhuti,
I'm Dr. Mark Walcott.
and we look forward to next week when we can open up much earlier. And next strong. Sorry, I stand corrected. Not next week. Next strong. We look forward to when we can actually open up the conversation, and then next week we can open up the line.
Yes.
Next strong, we can open up the line. This is what I'm telling you. We have been amongst this Eurocentric vibe so long.
Wow.
We have been conditioned in
It's
such a
absolutely
manner
true.
and in such a way that even when we open our mouth, the little Eurocentric vibe jump out. Anyway, people, give thanks and praise once again. We look forward to seeing you next strong.
Yeah, man. In the name
Thank
of
you.
love. In the name of love,